Welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right in. Because today, we're looking at an animal that literally feels like it walked straight out of prehistoric times and right into our modern world. We're venturing out into the vast, sweeping grassy plains and those incredibly dense tropical forests of Africa and Asia to explore one of the most magnificent, oldest, and frankly, largest land mammals on Earth. Yep, we're talking about the rhinoceros. For so many of us, when we picture a rhino, we just see this heavily armored, almost mythical beast. But as we're going to see today, there's a profound depth to their biology, their behavior, and their crucial role on this planet that goes way, way beyond that tough exterior. So think about this. What animal combines the body of an armored tank, the environmental impact of a master gardener, and the gentle patience of a dedicated mother? Kind of sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? We're just so used to the stereotype of the rhino as this slow, overly cautious, lumbering beast, or maybe as this unpredictable, aggressive force of nature. But hey, this is exactly why we're calling this visual breakdown the misunderstood giant. By the time we wrap up today, I want to completely shatter that stereotype for you. We're going to unpack the science and the daily lives of these incredible creatures to show you exactly how they are, without a doubt, nature's ultimate multitaskers. Section 1. The oldest giants on Earth. To truly understand the rhinoceros, you really have to realize that they are among the oldest large mammals still surviving today. They are living links to a time when giant megafauna roamed literally every corner of the globe. From the sun-baked savannas of Africa to the humid, shaded jungles of Asia, they've adapted and survived for millions of years. But, survival for a creature this massive requires a very unique biological toolkit. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer physical contrast. When you look at a rhino, you see absolute physical dominance, right? You see immense, unstoppable strength. But biology always requires trade-offs. The rhinoceros actually suffers from a pretty significant physical weakness. They have incredibly poor eyesight. They practically live in a visual blur. But to compensate for this, evolution has gifted them with some extraordinary sensory strengths. Their senses of smell and hearing are highly, highly developed. They've got these giant satellite dish ears that rotate independently to catch the faintest rustle of leaves. And their olfactory system, their sense of smell, it allows them to read the wind like a map. They don't need to see you from a mile away. They can hear and smell exactly what's happening in their environment to navigate safely. Section 2. The diverse rhino family. It's so easy to just lump all rhinos into one single category. We see the horn, we see the thick skin, and we naturally think, okay, they're all exactly the same. But despite sharing that iconic, incredibly tough build, the rhino family is actually beautifully diverse. There are 5 distinct species alive today, and each one comes with its own unique traits, temperaments, and evolutionary quirks. Let's do a quick rundown, because the variety here is just fascinating. First up, you have the white rhino. This is the absolute heavyweight champion, the largest of the species roaming the African plains. Then, sharing that same continent, is the black rhino. They're actually known for being a bit more temperamental and really prefer a solitary life. Now, if we cross over to Asia, things get really interesting. You have the Sumatran rhino, which is the smallest of the 5, and actually has a light coating of hair on its skin. It's kind of a cool little echo of its ancient woolly ancestors. Then there's the Indian or one-horned rhino, which literally looks like it's wearing actual plates of thick skin armor riveted together. And finally, the tragic Javan rhino, which currently holds the devastating title of being one of the rarest animals on the face of the earth. So, the crucial takeaway here is that a rhino's specific anatomy entirely dictates how it behaves and, most importantly, what it eats. Just look at this comparison between the 2 African species. The white rhino has this wide, flat mouth. And why? Because it's basically nature's lawnmower. That wide mouth is perfectly designed for grazing massive amounts of grass right off the ground. Now, in stark contrast, the black rhino has these prehensile or grasping, pointed lips. They aren't grazing on the ground, they're browsing. They use those pointed lips to delicately pluck leaves, twigs, and fruit straight from the branches of bushes and trees. But because of their massive size, all rhinos do share one very demanding behavioral trait. They have to eat for long, continuous hours every single day just to maintain their massive energy reserves and regulate their body heat out there under the scorching sun. Section 3. The ecosystem engineer. All right, so we've established that rhinos eat massive amounts of vegetation. But here's the thing, they aren't just taking from the environment, they are completely reshaping it. Let's move on and see how this builds into their role as true ecosystem architects, not just consumers. Let's walk through exactly how a rhino's daily habits physically shape the savanna and the forest. It's really a beautiful cause and effect narrative. Step 1. By constantly eating, especially the grazers like the white rhino, they act as regulators for grass growth. They trim down the dominant grasses, which stops overgrowth and actually lets smaller, different plant species thrive. It maintains a really delicate vegetation balance. Step 2. Because they're essentially organic bulldozers, as they walk through dense forests or tall brush, their sheer size carves out clear pathways. And these physical roads are then used by countless smaller animals who wouldn't be able to get through that dense brush otherwise. Step 3. Well, all that eating naturally leads to a lot of organic waste. But their dung is incredibly nutrient-rich. It spreads vital seeds and constantly fertilizes the soil to keep the entire ecosystem fertile and healthy. They are literally planting the forests of tomorrow just by going about their day.
Section 4. The mud and water routine.
Now, all this eating and ecosystem engineering, that is exhausting work, especially under the blazing midday sun. So how does an animal this large, with virtually no sweat glands, cope with that extreme heat? Well, the answer lies in the mud. I want you to imagine the sensory experience of a rhino at high noon. They seek out a local water hole and literally just sink right into the mud pit. They'll churn the water with their heavy feet to get the mud nice and thick, and then they completely coat themselves in it. This routine serves 4 absolutely critical purposes. First, it immediately cools down their surprisingly sensitive skin. Second, once that mud dries, it acts as a high SPF natural sunblock, completely blocking extreme heat and UV rays. Third, that dried crust becomes a literal suit of natural armor against biting insects, ticks, and parasites. And finally, and perhaps most wonderfully, it promotes deep calm and relaxation. It's their time to rest, lower their heart rate, and just be at peace sitting in the cool mud. Section 5. Communication and maternal affection. When they aren't chilling at the mud baths, rhinos are largely solitary creatures. But, just because they live alone doesn't mean they're antisocial. They actually have a rich, hidden life of communication. Because their sense of smell is so incredibly powerful, they communicate through complex scent markers. They'll leave their scent on trees, bushes, and the ground to claim territory, signal where the good food is, or let others know they're ready to mate. It's basically this invisible chemical language written all across the landscape. And when mating is successful, it leads to a truly staggering number: 16. That is 16 months. A female rhino carries her single calf for a full 16 months before giving birth. Just think about the immense patience and the biological toll that requires. It is an unbelievable investment of energy to bring just one single baby into the world. And this brilliantly illustrates the emotional depth of these animals. Once that calf is born, the mother will fiercely protect it for 2 or more years until it is fully, totally independent. You have this massive, imposing, armored giant, an animal that could literally flip a car without breaking a sweat, displaying the most incredibly tender, extended affection and patience with her small calf. She guides it, she teaches it what to eat, and she puts herself between it and any danger out there on the savannah. It completely shatters that stereotype of the unfeeling, aggressive beast, doesn't it? Which brings us to our final thought today. Can this ancient giant survive the burden of its own crown, when its defining, prominent horn is the main cause of its suffering today? It really is the most tragic irony in the animal kingdom. The very thing that defines the rhinoceros, this magnificent horn that has helped them survive for millions of years, is now the primary reason they are poached and driven to the brink of extinction. As we've seen, they are ecosystem engineers, gentle mothers, and ancient survivors. So the question we have to leave you with is whether our generation will be the one to ensure they continue to shape the wild, or if their legendary armor will finally fail them. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you walk away seeing the rhino not just as a beast, but as the incredibly complex, misunderstood giant it truly is.